Hey everyone, we're just going to give a few more, 30 seconds or so to let everyone in, and then we'll get rolling. Sure, smell. It's like this awkward moment where people are coming in, and you're like,
We can
gotta
do
love
shout
it.
outs to
Right?
everyone we know that came in. Right?
Like, hey, hey, hey.
Good morning,
Um,
Aisha. Hey, Angela Benjamin. Anthony Perez, thank you for joining us. Ariana Rubio, thank you for joining us. Ashley Wright, thank you. Brennan, Brooke, Carla, Daniela.
See, you can't take her anywhere. You
See
can't take
Freddie
her
Mac. We've
anywhere.
got quite a few celeb visits on here.
hmm
You see a Blumberg. Wow.
All right, so let's get. I know Jonathan just got out of a hearing, so he's going to be joining in any moment. Um, so I guess first of all, good afternoon. Welcome to season 7, episode 1 of the Blueprints. We're going to be talking about how to become an indispensable associate. Um, Listen, before we get going, hey Jonathan. Um, Before we get going, I just want to take one moment and express my gratitude to all of you because you're taking time out of your day to be here with us, but also to those of you who have followed me along this journey over the last 7 years as the Blueprints has grown and evolved. And this year in particular, we're trying to sort of expand and grow our mission in a greater way. And our mission is pretty simple, right? We create substantive, practical content for the legal community, and we try and do it in a really accessible way, i.e., we don't charge for it. And so this year we're going to be doing, in addition to some other things we're going to roll out, we're going to try and do a CLE either every month or every other month with other lawyers or state court judges, federal court judges. If you want more information, we are on the Blueprints Law on Instagram, or we're also going to be giving out different email blasts and things like that so that you can kind of see what topics we're covering and see if anything might be of benefit to you. So let's talk about today, right? So how to become an indispensable associate. Here's the very brief context for this, right? I was a state and federal prosecutor for 7 years. I came over to civil, and I mean, when I tell you that I didn't know what I was doing, that's like a gross understatement. I was like Googling what an interrogatory was my first week, right? But the thing that I did have because of my background and being involved in the community for 7 years was I did have resources. And so I started asking people around that I aspired to have a career like when in civil. And I said, how do I do this? Like, how do I do this well? And they would all say, well, first of all, Marion, you got to become an indispensable associate. You got to be indispensable to your partner. You got to be indispensable to the client. You got to be indispensable to the goal of the case. And so I think law generally lends itself to a very rote like approach to thinking. Okay, logical. If this and that. Okay, well, it's logical. If I'm going to be an indispensable associate, I'm just going to do good work. And I've tried to challenge myself along my career to rethink what you would just naturally think. And so instead of just thinking, oh, I'm just going to do great work, I started asking those same people, what does it mean to you to be an indispensable associate? And what I started to realize after I asked about 10 to 15 people after a lot of coffees, which I don't even drink coffee, I realized that that means different things to different people. And I was getting different answers. So I started to take notes and I would apply those things depending on the scenarios and the circumstances and the cues that I was getting. So I think the takeaway that I understood from that was that if you think that you're just going to do great work and become an indispensable associate, you're leaving opportunity on the table. And hence why I'm here, right? I happen to have 3 really great friends that also happen to be great lawyers, very active in the legal community, and just really good people. And so, very transparently, I just called them up and I said, hey, this is the topic. I think you all have various different experiences that I think each of you would probably have a different definition of what an indispensable associate is and what that means to you all. So, can we have a conversation about it? And so that's what we're going to do today. Uh, in full, so that's kind of what we're covering in terms of the I guess blueprint, right? Pun intended. Um, Here's how I'd like to have this happen, right? We've done our legwork. We've think tanked this. We've tried to workshop this. We tried to make sure it's worth your time. We have an agenda that we're going to, in theory, follow, which is we're going to cover the basics of being an indispensable associate. We're going to cover the substantive nature of what that means. We're going to talk about managing up. Good luck, Mal. That's all on you. And we're then going to talk about business development, and how you start thinking about business immediately. You don't need to wait till you're a partner and all of a sudden you're like, where's the business? What am I doing? How do I actually do that? Oh, I've got to actually sustain myself. So it's like how you start that thought process. My goal is that we completely go off script and you all take us in a different direction that suits you, because ultimately we're here to serve you. So, with that said, ask questions, interrupt us, put it in the chat. We'll be following it. And we're really just going to have a podcast type conversation where I'm sure we'll probably interrupt each other. And the goal out of this, the last but not least, is that you take one thing away that either changes the way you practice or at least makes you think differently about the way you practice. Uh, so, with that sort of context, I'm going to shut up for a second and I am going to pass it to, and guys, if you could, I can't really do you guys justice. So before you launch into kind of what we're talking about, Jo, I'm going to pass it to you. Maybe you and Mal can talk about the basics, but before you start whatever you're going to talk about, can you just introduce yourself and maybe humble brag a little bit about who you are and what you're doing?
Mallory, please go first.
Happy to. Hi, my name is Mallory Cooney. I'm president of Miami-Dade Fall. I'm also a litigation and white collar associate at K&L Gates in Miami. I've been there since I was a summer associate in the small office of a big firm. So I've had a lot of experience with people coming and going, different partner expectations, and we serve pretty much every industry of client. So I've got experience from small to large, people that have knowledge of how litigations and investigations work and people who don't, as well as managing partners who have been in big firms themselves for a long time, and partners who are brand new partners, partners that are like Marianne coming from the government. So I hope that I can give you some of the knowledge that I've developed over the years, managing partners and managing associates.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan. I'm currently the Fort Lauderdale managing shareholder at the law firm Gunster. Before this, I was a federal prosecutor. Before that, I was an associate at Gunster. And I went to law school at Georgetown. And I'm really fortunate to have the opportunity to speak with you all today. And this will be a common thread through everything that I say today. But I remember being a high school kid when the Blueprint album came out. That's a Jay-Z album. And I used to actually envision riding around in my car being a lawyer one day. And it has been a really long time since that happened. But I can remember aspiring to be a law student and then aspiring to be a young lawyer. And now I aspire for ongoing success, but it always takes a team and it always takes hard work.
Cool. So why don't we kick it to you guys in terms of, let's talk a little bit about the basics, right, of being a associate, an indispensable associate, and sort of just what comes up for you guys. I know we talked a little bit about some bullet points, and then I'm sure Charisse will jump in and we'll have our own thoughts about it.
Yeah, so I can start. What I tell junior associates are two main things that you can do to make yourself indispensable. First is anticipating needs, the client's needs, the partner's needs, senior associate needs. Um, we talk about a lot in our firm that even if you don't have direct client contact, the people who assign your work are your clients. So you should think of them that way. You should serve them in the same way you would a client. They are bringing you more work in the future if you do well, just like a client would outside of the firm. So if you're in litigation, the idea is to be looking at the court deadlines, coming to partners or the senior associate on the file in advance and saying, hey, I see that a motion is going to be due in X number of weeks. What is the plan? What can I do to help? Checking in is key. Managing the schedules, becoming the master of the documents, making sure that you know everything for when they ask for it. And the second thing, we can get more into the specifics of both of these. I'm sure everybody has thoughts, is problem solving. I have a good friend who's a kindergarten teacher who gave me a rule that I used as an associate backwards, and now I use it as an assigning person and forwards. She calls it ask three and then me. She has it for her kids in class where if you have a question about an assignment, ask three friends or look in three places. So maybe read the instructions again, read the board, see if there's any information anywhere. So look for three sources. And I implemented that as a junior associate. I still do. If I'm not sure about something and I don't necessarily want to go asking, I read the email again. Maybe do a Google, ask a friend down the hall so that I can try to solve the problem myself before going to the partner. And if those sources don't work, using your common sense and coming to the person who assigned you the work with a proposed solution, even if it's wrong, is something. Instead of just saying, what should I do? Say, I'm not sure what to do. I think the path is X. What do you think? I think those two things will take you a long way. But I know we've got a bunch of tips. How about you, Jonathan?
A few things came to mind, and I agree with everything that you said. But so this skill is true at every stage of your legal career, but listening cannot be overstated in its importance. It's critical at every stage. And another thing that comes to mind when I think about client service, and I agree with you that when you first start out, your clients are your colleagues, but I think that remains the case throughout your career, especially if you practice in a law firm. And so communication about when the deadline is, communication about our status and our progress toward the deadline. And in the event that we need an extension of a deadline, that has to be communicated extremely early because whoever you're reporting that to may have a deadline that they have to meet. And so we have to know if the overall goals are in jeopardy, but even if they're not, we have to know how to manage expectations for whoever we are communicating up to about when things will be done and how they'll be done and what kind of feedback we need.
And for that, Jonathan, how do you feel when an associate asks you, like, what do you have on your plate so that I can understand like when I need to get this to you and what the reality is?
It's a great question. I welcome it. And sometimes I'll say, well, why do you ask? Because it's collaborative. And what's on their plate is as important as what's on my plate. We just have different perspectives on the same problem. And so it's all about being part of a collaborative team.
And one of the things we talked about that seems basic, but some people don't know to look for this, is looking for partners' prior filings to find things that they like to do, stylistic changes. Do you, as a partner, send any of that stuff to associates to look at? You say, here's an example, or do you want them to find that on their own?
There are two avenues. Oftentimes, if I've done something like it before, or if someone else in the firm has, I'll send it to them as a go by, especially when someone first starts or as a summer associate or a first or second year associate. I think from there, I don't always send what I'd call a go by. As prosecutors, we pretty much did everything using go bys. And so that's kind of ingrained in my DNA as a lawyer. But we also have a system in the firm, and I think a lot of firms do, where you can search by the person's name and find it on your own. So I'm happy to provide it, but you can also find it yourself, which shows indispensability.
And I find a good thing to do is when you find some of those examples, sending them to the partner, because there may have been something weird about that. The partner may not have really drafted it. Like there's all kinds of things that could be funky. And I think it's always good to ask other associates, hey, what does this partner like and do? Like I have one partner that has very strong opinions about splitting infinitives. So we'll change all of yours if you don't do it right. I have partners who have strong feelings about spacing, headings, small things that if you just do it the first time, they might not notice that you did it right, but their brain doesn't, it feels happier reading it because it's in the way that they like. I actually had a partner once who's a great mentor of mine, and he was just trying to scare me my first week or so of practice that I didn't know about fully justifying documents because I came from English literature world of writing. And so printed out my motion in front of me, ripped it in half, and then threw it in the trash can for effect and said, next, I will not read anything that is not fully justified. But it worked. And had I talked to someone before that, I would have known that everything should be fully justified, but definitely for that partner.
And I want to kick this to Sharice because I have a few thoughts before we move on, but I
Yeah.
think that what hit me so hard too, what you just said, Mal, is the amount of times that I think young people and I'll include us in that, right? At times we did
Yeah.
it too, which is we think or we speak before we think. And that is the one thing which is I came in as a seventh year. So like I felt like I had to be I should be smarter than they actually thought I was in terms of this stuff. So I wouldn't ask questions. And I think it's a fine balance, right? It's like I'm not saying you don't ask questions, but make sure you aren't intellectually lazy, because I have to tell you, as a partner now, those are the things that I look towards as to, at the end of the day, your goal is to make that partner's life easier. You're not putting more things on my plate. So when you ask me, what's on your plate, Marianne? I'm like, wow, okay, somebody's actually thinking through and understanding that I just don't have one thing that I'm reviewing. And so what I would do is I would set myself up on the partner schedule. I'd become besties with their legal assistant, and I'd find pockets to make sure I'd set myself on their schedule, and they'd be like, wow, you're like, the great initiative. So, but anyways, Sharice, before you and I kick it to the next section, tell me your thoughts about, and also tell us what you do and who you are.
Sure. So first, my name is Sharice Morgan. I'm a partner at Cozen O'Connor in Miami, and I am also the immediate past president of the Miami-Dade Bar, and I'm currently in Tallahassee as a part of my Board of Governors liaison position. But I have a unique experience from Mallory and Jonathan in that I am just starting at a new firm. So for the past 8 years, I've been in-house counsel at a company. And then 2 months ago, I started at a big firm. So although I'm in a partner position, I have associates that work under, it's still a very challenging and new role that I'm getting used to. So I'm having both the burdens and the privileges of both positions, associate and partner. I loved what Mallory said about looking ahead at court deadlines. No greater sin is there. Is that not the original sin for lawyers to miss a deadline? And particularly as an associate, missing a deadline is considered unacceptable, right? So that alone, looking ahead at court deadlines, getting ahead and saying, hey, I see this is coming. You have it on your calendar. It's on the partner's calendar. You're staying on top of that, shows initiative.
Beautiful. Sharice, do you want me to kick off, or you want to start off on when we talk about sort of the substance and building? I mean, that's the sort of the basics, right? The things that you're thinking about. But when we talk about building your tool set, you want to start, or you want me to? I'm whatever you want.
No preference. Go. Start the car.
Okay.
I'll get off the exit.
So here are sort of my general thoughts, right? When I think about building the tool set, right? I'm going to work backwards, right? Is that you are generally not given any leeway when you start. You've got to earn everything. And I think about, I always try to think of myself moving forward. Now I had the benefit of, I had the good fortune of being Jonathan's trial partner for a few years over at the U.S. Attorney's Office. So I had some experience managing cases, managing and working with other younger attorneys and this and that. But I did always think about, if I was in the partner's shoes and I was managing me, what would I want? Right? So that was always the question. And then the second question I would ask myself is, if I'm the partner and ultimately the partner, this is the client, and this is how this partner theoretically is eating and feeding their family. And so if I'm going to give up control over potential results to an associate, you've got to prove it to me and make me feel comfortable that I'm not now going to lose that client because we've put ourselves in a situation where the hearing doesn't go well, or things like that. So this is just, again, my 2 cents. We'll open to your guys' thoughts. But what I started to do is I started small. And when I started small, this isn't a surprise about me. Whatever amount of preparation you think is appropriate, I'll do 3 times that. Maybe that's my own insecurities or my own issues, but I would fully write an outline and write a motion for summary judgment before we ever went into a deposition, and I would outline the deposition, even if the partner didn't use it. Hey, listen, did this, I put it on my personal development. I didn't charge the client. Here, if you want to use it, use it. If not, no problem. And like the first times they were like, okay, that's weird, like a little scary. But then like I started to notice, and I'd say, hey, listen, can I attend? Won't charge. I'll find a time to do my work at night. And I would start to notice that I'd hear things that I had put in that outline. Okay. And then once I started to hear that, then I started to ask questions of like, hey, do you think if there's like a smaller witness, maybe I'd be okay to take it? I mean, I'd feel comfortable. And when I got that opportunity, then I would get on the partner's calendar ahead of time. I'd say, let's go through this outline. Let's go through this outline. Make sure you see, do you like anything? Do you see anything different? So they felt fully comfortable because now when the tables are turned, and I will tell you this as an associate, I had a brand new associate, and I mean, gosh, maybe 1 year, Charisse. And I remember I took over a case for a good friend of mine, and we had some big depositions. And I was just sort of expecting her to balk, but I just wanted to see what she said. And I said, hey, do you want to have you ever taken a deposition? And she said, no. And I said, do you want to take one? Immediately, yes. And I'm like, cool, let's do it. Let's prep. This is what I'm going to need in order to feel comfortable. Had she balked for a second, I'm not actually giving her that opportunity because now I don't feel comfortable that I'm protecting the client in the case. So like those are some like general thoughts that I have in terms of building the tool set. Let me pause there and see kind of your reactions or kind of your thoughts as you kind of developed your skills.
One thing that I used to do as an associate, and I have loved to see, is knowing the client. So often, many times, partners, when they get new cases or when they get old cases with clients that they've had, they haven't done that deep dive that you do in a client when it's a new client or when it's someone you've never met. That's an opportunity as an associate for you to come in. And I don't care if it's McDonald's, if it's someone you think you know through and through that you grew up with, whoever the client is, I always get on their website, look at their mission statement, I Google them. I look at any of their filings, if they're public, if they're private. I do my own, like you said, deep dive on my own client development time and find out everything that I can know about the client. Because then when you get into the room or if you're on the phone with the client and the partner and you hear them talking about things, number one, you're no longer the dumbest person in the room. You have some context for what they're talking about, what their
So true.
industry is, who their competitors are, that sort of thing. You know the lay of the land. Two, it gives you the opportunity to tie back in when you're speaking the things that are important to the client. And clients love to hear that. They love to know that you are as invested in their business as they are. This isn't just another box you're checking. This isn't just another deposition, another hearing. You care about them because you care about the results and vice versa. That gives them that trust in you and makes it more likely that the next time they have a case, they'll say, hey, is associate available? She did a great job on the last one, even if you didn't get the results that you desire.
I think that's spot on. And I think what keeps ringing true to me, and I'm trying to get it out of my head and into like words that make sense, but what's indispensable, like if you want to grow your career and grow your credibility and have lasting sustainability and success in this industry, you start off with this idea that you want to be this rock star associate, and that which means you need to be indispensable. But indispensable to whom? And you have to understand who you are serving. And usually it's a partner, like Mal said, that is your client. And so, in order, the same way we now have books of business, I don't speak to any client or do anything the same way for each client. Every
Right.
client's different. It depends on what they value. Um, and so, I'm going to throw this. I was debating whether I was going to throw this out there to you guys, but here's an interesting scenario, right? That I thought was it sort of explains everything, right? So internally, I circulated this invite to not my associates, but the firm's associates. No ego here involved. All I was saying was, hey, listen, if you think that this will help you, click on register. Even if you just put it in the background, maybe you catch something, maybe you don't, but really low lift. If I'm an associate and a partner sends that to me, even if I didn't like the partner, I am registering, I am logging on, I am muting you so I don't have to listen to you. And because and it's not fake, right? It's understanding like this is what you value. Like if Marianne Curtis values the moxie and that part of being an associate, and that gives me comfort that you're going to care about my cases the way I care about my cases. Yeah. And so, sort of the irony of this is that two signed up out of 15. Now, I'm not shaming anybody, but I have to tell you, if I have my, my say, I'm one of those two
Yeah.
because you better believe those two I'm pouring into in whatever they need moving forward because now you've given me the comfort that you're willing to go that next level, whether it was me or whether it was like, hey, I sent this to you and somebody else was doing it. So anyways, I was interested in your guys' thoughts or feedback if that even would matter to you or what that shows.
Absolutely. It shows initiative. It also shows that they're listening. Even if you get those emails from the partner that don't require a response, I like to go and, acknowledge the receipt, say that you heard it. I had the CEO of our company came down to Miami. We're based in Philadelphia, but he came down to Miami last month and said, hey, I'm going to dinner at my favorite restaurant. Very low key. You don't have to come. It's not necessary. Why would I miss that opportunity? I changed my flight because I was in Chicago for a personal matter, and I made it back to Miami so I can go to dinner with the CEO. Why not be able to have a positive name face recognition? Just like Marianne was talking about, even if she sends it around to her firm, to different associates, she looks through participants who signed up. Oh, that associate signed up, that associate is here. You could be at the gym on the treadmill
Right.
listening to the aforementioned Blueprint album. No one would know.
Yeah.
But now Marianne has a positive name recognition that she sent something, she suggested something, and you signed up. And I take every opportunity to that, not just with clients, not just with other partners, not just with CEOs, but also with associates.
Well, it's and then Mal and Jonathan, I want to pass it to you before we go on to sort of managing up, which I just got a text message from, by the way, the associate that I was like, you want to take a deposition? And my other associate that like I would literally give my left arm for. And she's like, hey, just letting you know I'm here. I'm like, no, I got it. I got it. So anyways, Mal, JL, tell me your thoughts before we transition.
No, I mean, this is the lightest lift, like you said. All you have to do is sign up,
Right.
and you could sit at your desk and listen to it. And the best thing is not only will your name be seen, but you might learn inside information that
Right.
you can use for your
Yeah.
that will make your partner happy. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't do it, but like Charisse, I think it's so important, and it was instilled in me. Anyone who knows Dan Casey, who ran K&L for a long time, who's now a judge, knows that he said we support each other. So you see that someone in the firm is presenting, they wrote an article, you read it. They're presenting, you go. They're getting a table for a dinner, if it's not full, you should be there. And I think that people see it and it matters. And then that person is going to introduce you to the clients that are sitting at that table. That those clients are then going to remember you as the associate who showed up. But especially for stuff like this, you didn't have to change a flight. You just had to watch a Zoom.
No,
Do it.
and you know what's wild to me is like if nothing else, I used to do these things just to be like, oh hey Marianne, you mind connecting me with Charisse? Or do you
Hmm.
mind connecting me with Mal or
Yeah.
Jonathan? Like it's just the amount of people that I could be connected to as an associate, the more you have a network, which we're gonna be doing like some stuff on that as well, but the better. Like, so anyways,
Yeah.
Jonathan, tell me you're taking like notes over there. So I'm
Yeah,
I'm hoping you're gonna drop some dime on me.
I'll try. So as you all are discussing this last topic about showing up for a webinar, RSVPing for a webinar, showing up when the CEO's in town for dinner, these different examples, what I'm just picturing is a big picture. Like if you zoom all the way out and all those different components become a person's brand, they all become part of your reputation. They all contribute to whether someone finds you trustworthy, credible, and whether they're going to invite you the next time. And so as I think back to when I was like a beginning lawyer, but it's true of how I think even now, the way that you write substantive legal documents speaks to your attention to detail, speaks to your brand, speaks to how you show up. The way you write emails, the way you spell people's names in emails speaks to the same things. Your first impression can be a lasting one, or it can be the last impression that you earn from whoever's in the audience. And this will dovetail later when it comes to business development, but it's all part of the same journey. You have to learn the basics of practicing law, but when it comes to your attention to detail, those basics carry on into every part of your life. And the same preparation that you take with respect to an email is the preparation you'll take with respect to a closing argument, or a deposition outline or curating a nice experience for potential clients at a restaurant. It's all sort of a different facet of excellence. And you shouldn't accept anything less than that from yourself or from your team. But you have to first start with a personal high standard that you don't compromise.
And one last thing, right? And God, I shouldn't say that as a trial lawyer, right? Last question, and then you have like three questions. But I think the only thing that sort of brings this and ties this together for me is this idea that like you can't teach genuineness. I agree with that. But I think some of us are so in this box, this legal box that we're all supposed to just follow along. And I think what we can do today, which is sort of the goal, is to create awareness. Because there's a lot of really genuine people that are missing the ball or missing the boat, so to speak, on even logging in and putting it on mute, kind of even what Mal said, right? If Mal's looking and she sees somebody and she's like, wow, so and so supported me, they may not have listened to anything, but there is value to you, how you make people feel, right? And people miss the boat. And this isn't like a touchy-feely type like episode, but my point being is it is everything of how you show up, that I think some people are missing along the way. And they write great briefs, and they're wondering, well, how come I don't have a career like Jonathan or Charisse or Mal? And you're like, well, and it's not just because you became a president of a bar association, right? That took a whole level of work. So, anyways, anybody got any last things on that before we move to
No, I
Mallory?
just want to echo that, which is I heard a partner say this recently. We had our associate retreat for the entire firm in Miami, because why wouldn't it be in Miami? And a partner was just speaking to other partners, and I happened to be nearby talking about, yeah, the associates who are here are not the ones who just sit in their office and churn. Hours are important, output is important, but it's the people who show up for each other, for the partners, and for the firm that are going to get opportunities. So it matters.
Charisse?
I like that. I like what Jonathan said about it becomes your brand. When I was aspiring to become president of the Miami-Dade Bar, I wanted to make it my brand that I was everywhere doing everything all the time. So I go to everything. And that became my reputation, is that, oh, if there's a thing, if there's a legal thing, Sharice is going to be there. And now it's transferring over into my role at this new firm, that if you all are doing a thing, I'm going to be there. If there's a get together in the office, if there's a new client coming in, we often host, one of our clients is the Chamber of Commerce for Europe. So when they come in town, I'm always like, let me know what I can do. If I can come down and sip some new wine, I'll make that sacrifice.
But you know what? And then I'm kicking it to Mal. But you know what? The brand that Charisse, and it's reciprocal.
Yeah.
Because Charisse has a brand that she shows up, Charisse messages me and say, hey, I'm putting on this event. All right, I'm showing up. Maybe even if that's not my brand, the same way that it's Charisse's brand, for those people that show up, you're like, I'll show up.
Yeah.
And so it's just things to think about in if you're looking at the bigger picture. So, all right, Mal, talk to us about, as the senior associate slash probably senior partner at this point, with the amount of people you've had to manage. Talk to us about managing up, because I think that's sometimes a overused term and not fully understood.
And I think it's the biggest part of our job, right? Because just becoming a partner doesn't necessarily make you an expert at managing people. There's varying levels of ability to do it, but even the best managers I have need some hand-holding and some managing. And I think part of being an indispensable associate is those partners that can relax and trust that you will handle it and you will manage them. So it becomes the opposite of when you're a baby associate, which you shouldn't be this way, but it is. It's the partner following up with you and setting deadlines and making sure that you are on top of things and giving you the next steps. Now, that's what I do with partners. They trust that I am aware of what the plan is. I'm reminding them what meetings are coming up before a meeting. I'm telling them what they need to know. So the goal is to be that person that they can trust and feel comfortable with, and just know that if they give you a task, it's going to get done and it's going to get done well, and that you will only come to them if you really need help. To do that, you have to understand their limitations and quirks. Like, I have some partners who are skimmers. I have an amazing female mentor who many people on this call know, she is busy all the time. She gets 10,000 emails in a day. And so I know that I need to write my emails in a way that is concise. Certain things need to be bolded and or highlighted. And sometimes I also need to give her a summary of other things that have come in from other people because she might not know. I also know that before a big call, before a hearing, even if she says she's prepped, maybe I try to get her away from her computer, away from her phone for a few minutes so that we can talk it through face to face and I can make sure she understands. I also have partners that are like, I call them iterators. I'm sure you have different versions. They want to talk. They want to spend the time. So you've got to build that into your schedule. You have to know that I'm going to need to sit with this guy for an hour to talk about our ideas and bounce them off each other before we start. Maybe again, once you see my draft, it's not just going to be red lines. So learn those quirks. And if you don't know the people yet, ask. If you ask your friend down the hall, they're going to tell you. Everybody knows. These guys are, everybody has a checklist of their wants, needs, and issues. And so some things that we talked about in earlier section, I think go in here too, is like getting really clear at the initial meeting when you get an assignment or you get on a new matter, whether that's a litigation, an investigation, a deal, every type of associate does the same thing. What's the plan? What do you need from me right now? I always say that you should never be without something to take notes. At the very least, you have a phone. It has a note section in it. Tell the partner you're not texting and say you're taking notes, but like legal pads are awesome. Walk around with one, like it helps. And like take thoughtful notes. Don't just write down everything they say and ask questions while you're taking notes to help you take thoughtful notes. I had, as a junior associate, because I think Freddie Mac told me to do this, who's on this call, I had like a template made for myself on my notepad that was like client matter number, because half the time the partners forget to give that to you, or you can get it from their assistant. Make sure you get it. You don't want to, if you're in a big law, you got to bill that time. What's the deadline? What's the format? Like they want an email, they want a memo, they want bullet points versus long form. What is it? And just to remind myself to ask those questions. And like, how long should it take me? Because as I get told, even at my level all the time, no more than 30 minutes on this, no more than an hour on this. And I try to repeat back to the partner, or I have the person I'm assigning repeat back to me in their own words what they're doing and what the timing and the plan is for doing it. Because you don't want to leave that room and be confused. If you are, it happens. Please don't just go off and try to figure it out. Ask the follow-ups. Do it before you get started and go down a rabbit hole. Because if you're here because you're at a law firm, time is money, literally. Please don't do that to me. Then I have to explain to the partner that I didn't give you an assignment clearly enough, which I know I'm generally pretty good at, but sometimes I might not be because I'm really busy and I'm thinking 5 steps ahead. And so, I think it was Marianne's recommendation is if you don't know how to say what you're going to do next, ask the partner. Or even if you do know, what would you do? How would you start this? What would be your recommendation if they didn't give you one? I generally try to tell people where I think they should look or how I think they should do it. But if that doesn't come, ask, and they'll be refreshed that you did. And so when you're doing that, manage their expectations in that moment. So if someone says, I need this tomorrow, and you know that you have XYZ on your plate, tell the partner. They may say, none of that's important. That needs to go. But then the partner or senior associate can go speak to the other person that owes you that work. Someone in our firm dubbed it like, make them do gladiators, like make them fight it out in the ring. That's not your decision. So those people can talk about what's more important. If for some reason that they can't speak to each other, or if like at my level, I'm comfortable going to someone and saying, hey, could I get an extension on this deadline that is pretty far out because I know that I need to do this emergency. Things happen. But communicating along the way too. If someone said you should take 3 hours to do this or 2 days to do this and you're halfway in and it's going to take me longer or I'm down a rabbit hole and I need help, that's when you ask. Like Jonathan said, you shouldn't be asking for extensions the day before it's due. I mean, it's too late now. So early and often raise the flag, ask the follow-up questions. If it's research, hey, this is what I'm finding. Am I doing the right thing? Making sure that you're following a schedule, managing expectations, and being responsive and communicative along the way. And I know that Charisse has some thoughts on managing up without overstepping, for sure.
Only because I'm in an interesting position now where I came in and there's an associate who's going out on maternity leave. So she's giving me her caseload. This isn't the
Mm.
time for me to, struggle with our positioning and hierarchy. I'm going to take the associate role. I'm saying, tell me everything there is to know about your clients. Start looping me in on emails now because she has about 3 weeks until she goes out. So put me in on everything. Let me file my notices of appearance. Let me get knee deep into everything here because I'm going to take her caseload. I don't want to move her caseload and start handing it over to other associates. I want to handle it myself to get this done here. Plus, they're pretty straightforward matters. Um, Difficult partners abound, right? People are not intentionally difficult. Some are just kind of different. Like Mallory said, they like different things. There's a fine line between saying, yes, I got it, going forth with the assignment, and then feeling like you're being taken advantage of. When I was a 2L, I had a dream job that I literally had to compete for as a summer associate in a major city in their law department. It was awesome. Again, I had to compete to get it. So I really wanted to just shut up, put my head down, and do it. And sooner than later, you moved departments there, and I was assigned to a senior partner who made it perfectly clear that he didn't have time to entertain a 2L and wasn't interested in it. So he had me doing magazine clippings instead of actual legal work. And another senior partner saw me in the hallway and asked, what am I working on? And I told her that I was doing a magazine project for this other senior partner. And she was visibly disturbed. God, this was 2006. That's how old I am.
You are
But
so
but seeing her say she got upset and she was the one who went and confronted the senior partner. But then she came back to me and said, okay, Sharice, this is going to happen in your career. The next time that happens, here's a way that you could approach it. And one of those ways is to say to the partner, I will do what you asked me to do. But like Mallory said, like Marianne said, what is on your plate? And then start shadowing them, start following them. Start making yourself so indispensable because you're physically attached. They have to give you something more substantive because you're physically standing there. And in that case, for that particular partner, that's something that worked to literally be in his face so that he knew I need to give her something to do. She's not going to leave. Then I had a lot more time on my hands, so I could do the magazine clippings in the evening and then come back and do the substantive legal work when I was in the office.
And that's a
I
big part of like staying on top of people when we talk about managing up. I think that's something that I was afraid of for a long time was the poke of like, you haven't reviewed this thing yet. And I see that there's a way to do it of obviously people have things on their plate. So don't just say, how dare you have not done something in the time I would have expected. Think before you act, and be careful about the wording you use. But especially when you know you have that busy partner who's not great at managing their schedule and says yes to everything. Like Marianne said, maybe get on their schedule, block off some time for you to go over the red lines with them so that they think I need to get the review to that associate before then, or just follow up and say, hey, I know that this is due to the client by X date. Have you had a chance to look at it? Is there anything I can do? Because sometimes we just forget and they'll appreciate the reminder if it's done right.
I've seen emails, not that I've received them, but the person says,
Never.
bringing this back up to the top of your inbox.
and
Hey,
whatever
this
you
might have
do,
come
Gently bringing
right,
this back up to the top of your
Gentle
inbox.
poke.
right, but
Yeah.
whatever you do not just forward the email in a passive
Oh,
aggressive way.
Oh,
Like,
no.
not a good idea. Not a good.
oh,
We all want to do that. Do
Yeah.
not do that.
oh.
Well, like this
But
happened to me today. I had a partner who sent me an email that they were going to send out to opposing counsel and asked me to look at it to make sure that everything was correct as to what we'd agreed with the client. And then it never went out. And so I then followed up by text because I thought maybe emails are getting too much and said, hey, and who you can text and who you can't, be careful about that. I said, hey, did you see my revisions to the email and did you send it out? And the partner actually said, I thought it went out. It's stuck in her outbox. So
Yeah.
thank God I asked, right? And
Yep.
she appreciates that. Or maybe she would have forgotten. Half the time, I don't know how many times this happens to you guys. I start writing something and then somebody calls me and I stop and it's sitting there.
Yeah.
yep,
So
100%.
know that
Yeah.
someone clearly meant to do it, follow up, and we will appreciate that.
100%. So to put a bookend on this, and then Jonathan, I wanted you to touch on some business development before we go into the final hit. I think the biggest thing that rings true, Mal, when you were like dropping your mic, because that was fantastic, what you just went through, was I am exhausted just listening to you about what you have to do. And I think there could be a question that comes to some people like, well, why is this my responsibility? And the answer that I always tell people is it's not. Technically, you don't have to do that. But I always say it rolls, you know what, rolls downhill. So, I'd rather get out in front of it and know and manage my schedule and be able to have, dinner with my wife as opposed to I didn't follow up with the email or I didn't do any of that. And now I'm getting in 911
Yeah.
emails at 9 o'clock at night when I sent it back at noon. Or that example of your partner of making sure that like the skimmers that they put their eyes on the document or you've prepped because at the end of the day, I mean, good leaders won't do this, but average ones will, which is if something goes wrong, they're looking for someone to blame.
Yeah.
And so it is your job to make them look good. And eventually you will be the person that will be hopefully looking good and you can manage it differently. But I think at the end of the day, you're not doing it for them all the time. You're doing it for your own peace of mind and to grab control back of your day and your schedule that you won't have until you have your own book of business.
Yeah, and heaven forbid, like you do this amazing motion and great hearing outline, and then because they haven't prepped it, you lose. Like
Right.
it helps you too. Why do you want your work to go to waste, right?
100%, 100%. So Ozzy, talk to us about some business in terms of as an associate and kind of how they can think about it.
I would love to. It's one of my favorite topics. We should do another webinar just on this.
I know. I didn't give you enough time, man. I'm
That's all right.
sorry. I'm
All right.
sorry.
It's all right. It's all good.
And let's give them a teaser so they come
Sure,
back.
sure. All right. So in most law firms, including in ours, it's not an obligation of associates to develop business, but I think it's an opportunity. And if you have the mindset of a person who wants to be of service, first of all, inside your law firm, which is where your business first starts to grow, but also when you leave the building where you practice and are walking down the street, you can be of service to everyone. And one evolution that I saw in my career was going from people seeing me as a law school graduate, people seeing me as, the kid that they grew up with, but who's now a lawyer, to a person who can help solve problems. And so I get calls all the time, I'm sure you all do too, for issues that are not in my wheelhouse as a lawyer. Sometimes they're not even legal issues, but I can always help. I can help you find a resource that's both internally and externally. And the lawyers who become known, let's say, start in their office as problem solvers, and then you zoom out just a little bit to on their street where they live or where they practice law as problem solvers. You zoom out more, the lawyers who get known in Miami-Dade County or Broward County as problem solvers, state of Florida, the United States, the world as problem solvers have calls that are consistent with that reputation. And so whoever Mallory works with, whose phone's always ringing, who gets 10,000 emails a day, that's because that lawyer has solved a lot of people's problems, either through her practice or just by her helpful approach to life. And that type of ethos is available to everyone. And you don't have to wait. One thing, the last thing I'll say on this, unless there's further questions, is one thing I've also come to understand that in our business, the sales arc is your entire life. So you never know when there will be a need. It could come from someone that you knew back when you were in middle school. It could come from a law school classmate. It could come from somebody you met this morning. But the sales arc begins with that first impression. And you can either leave a lasting impression or you can either not give a person or an issue the attention it deserves and miss out on an opportunity today or at an unknown time in the future because they're going to call Marianne instead because Marianne was nice, because Marianne
Yeah,
was helpful.
yeah. So, and I think before we finish up, I obviously want Sharice and Mal your thoughts on this from your perspectives. But sort of I have a few thoughts. One is that as an associate, the number one source of business I had, other than the partner or the partners, was the partner's clients. I'm not saying I stole the clients. What I'm saying is that I became that leash got longer and longer and longer. Where essentially the partner was like, I mean, in other countries, just sipping wine, and was like, "Oh, Marianne will figure it out."
That's right.
The clients became my friends because I treat the client first, then I treat their problem, right? I need to know the client to know how I can solve the problem. because you cannot solve a problem if you don't understand who you're solving it for. Similar to, we've come full circle, you can't be indispensable if you don't know who you're being indispensable to. So what would happen is those clients would tell their friends, hey, so this partner's like $800-900 an hour, but I deal with the associate. Do you want her information? And those were my first clients that I got. And like that's how the word spreads. And it's not going to surprise anybody here, probably, that Jonathan and I have been having these types of weird esoteric conversations about business development. And I think we both align on this in that I've become absolutely obsessed with making sure that when I get a call, I don't care if it's like, what do you think about the best color for the like paint in my house? I am going to connect you with the best interior designer so she can give it to you because you can count on me. I got you. And then when I give a referral out, I'm going to follow up with that lawyer and make sure that that client is taken care of. And when I'm on the other side, I am constantly following up with the attorney. Hey, Jo, so this is what happened here. I just want you to know, keep you aligned. So like those are two things that inevitably will just breed more people talking and like just wanting their people to be taken care of. I'm going to do a whole different episode on building your book of business because that was a topic almost as like people just like, oh, well, you just have to spend time in the legal community. Wrong. You don't just have to get old to build a book of business. That is not the formula. Although they'll tell you that it just takes time. Wrong. So I'll leave that alone. Sharice, Mal, before we do our quick hitter, anything on building a book of business?
Mal, you go first.
For me, it's been exactly like you said, Marianne. It's getting my name out there with these clients, and also keeping my relationships with people that you might not think are important from law school, people you meet around, because then they become important. I've been like to events a lot, and people have said that it's maybe not worth going to because the folks there are low level, but they forget that the high level people have their lawyers, have their law firms that they're loyal to. The low level people don't yet. And once they have a friend, they're going to give business to their friends. That's what I would want to do. That's what I do want to do. That's who I refer business to. I've referred business to Marianne because I think that she's a good lawyer and someone that I can trust. And if I say her name to someone, I know it's going to be worth it. So,
Thank you, by the way. Sharice, talk to us. Anything on that?
Yeah, this is just something I had to learn. Like I said, I was in-house before, so I was used to being fed clients. And then I came out into the wild and had to hunt. And I did not know how to hunt. I've never had to hunt before. And everyone said, you already know everyone in Miami-Dade County. And I felt like, but I was just meeting them because I'm a social person who likes to go outside. And everyone said,
Exactly.
that's your industry, that's your people. And that's exactly what it became. I became the go-to person for, oh, I bet you know this person. Yeah, I do. You know this person. I sure do. And that alone, a lot of times that referral business that's the book of business in itself in some ways.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do a little bit of audible on you guys for the last one, but I will say one last thing. Ask for business.
Yeah.
Ask for business. Do you know how many times I'd have a conversation with Mal or Sharice or Ozzy and say, hey, listen, who in your network do I need to know? Who in your network can I help? Can I serve? And it's really just creating those relationships where they might not have an issue. And I'm not trying to just turn up a legal bill here. It's like you don't know what you don't know. So anyways, so here's the audible, guys. We got 5 minutes. I'm gonna say my dad always used to have a question for me, and he used to ask it for me incessantly. And he would say, knowing what you now know, what advice would you give yourself? So like even after a game, he'd say, knowing what you now know, what would you have done differently? So you guys can take that in whatever iteration and where you're at in your career. But maybe Sharice, if it's okay, maybe we start with you. We go to Mal, we go to Ozzy, and it's the question is, knowing what you now know, what if anything would you do differently? Slash, what advice would you give everybody?
Um, from the time I was a law student to when I first became a young associate, I was the put your head in the books and work hard person. And I would have been doing what I'm doing now, going outside, meeting people. This is the way to practice law. This is the way to get to know industries better. This is the way to be an indispensable associate.
Okay. Mal?
For me, I think I would have trusted my abilities more and asked more. Like, I think that once I did start asking, hey, can I take a deposition next time? Hey, can I take a witness? The answer was yes, because I'd done the work and shown I could. But partners weren't offering to me because they didn't want to pressure me. And so they were offering once they felt I was ready. But if I'd asked earlier, I've had people tell me that they would have given it to me earlier. And there were other associates, like mostly younger male associates, that felt that confidence. And I had that like imposter syndrome or whatever you want to call it, where I felt that I wasn't ready, and I definitely was. So I would tell people, just ask. If you're not ready, the partner will tell you. Of
Mel, can I ask one follow-up question on that?
course.
Did you feel that only, I mean, because I mean, you became the president of a really big organization. Did you feel like that outside of the office too?
Oh, sure.
And you had to be pushed into sort of that? Okay.
I got pushed into this role at MD Fall as well because I didn't think that I was ready. And some people smacked me around a bit and made sure I understood I was.
Okay. Cool. Ozzy?
I'll use a sports anecdote. So when you grow up playing sports, a lot of times you'll walk through, let's say your high school or your college, and you'll feel like your team are the only friends you need. That's wrong. So I went to a big law school, probably had 500 people in my class. I think I probably graduated from law school with 15 meaningful friendships. That was an incredibly missed opportunity, and one that once you get out into the legal profession, into the community, you realize you can't have a deep relationship with everyone, but relationships are everything, and you have to invest in relationships the way you invest in anything else. And so I would say I would have known the importance of relationship always, but I think it's important to look around at people who maybe don't share the same interests as you, as people that you can help and that you can develop a relationship with. Because when it comes to business and the practice of law, that's actually the most valuable referral. You know, someone who has a different specialty from you, maybe in a different part of the community as you, a different skill set, different client set than you. And you can be incredibly collaborative and really do good work together without having to be on the same basketball team.
Hmm. Okay. I so I mean I obviously there's common themes in here. I would say that my definition I've spent my entire life chasing quote unquote excellence. And it wasn't until more recently that I've I don't know if you guys have ever seen or listened to the book Think Again by Adam Grant. And it just constantly requires you to question everything, which is how I've tried to approach this career. And I started to change as I've gotten older in terms of what my definition of excellence is. And it's the quality of my relationships, 1,000%. And what I realized is then you go one step further, and the quality of your relationships comes down to, for me, how you make people feel and the level of, I don't want to say, I guess, consistent trust and confidence that you're always going to come through. And to me, what I would tell myself is, thankfully, I think I've done this, but the advice that I would give is to make sure that the little things matter. And you know, the idea that how you write an email and not just firing things off. The idea that you stop and actually have a full conversation with somebody for a second longer than you wanted to keep going. It all matters because, and I will bring this full circle, when I pick up the phone and I call Sharice or I call Mallory or I call Jonathan, and it's pretty quick. Yeah, Mary, what you need? Let's do it. But that's because we've created this along the way. There's a lot of mistakes that I have made, but thankfully I haven't made that one. Because your reputation and your character is everything in this. Um, it's just don't stop there because you got to think about all the things that get you to the point where you have the character and all of that. So with that, it is 1 o'clock, so I will get off of our soapbox. Sharice, Mal, Jonathan, thank you guys so much. If they didn't get anything out of it, I did, so I appreciate it. And I look forward to the next one. And to everyone, I will be sending out the CLE probably in the next week or so. The Florida bar's been a little bit backed up. But I will send that out. Thank you all for being here, and we look forward to the next one. Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.